but it's similar to you seeking advice from people that are in your surrounding. They can only give you advice for as far as they can see. If they're not able to see themselves out of a toxic or chaotic or dysfunctional relationship, they could have, good intentions. They could want to see you do better in their head, but they're not going to be able to help you do better. They're not going to give you step-by-step guide of how to go from A to B or A to Z and get yourself together to get out of this relationship or whatever the toxic environment that you're in. It's difficult. Conversations with Shay. For this episode, I am giving you a throwback from a series that I used to do titled "Let's Talk About It." In this episode, I am talking about being wise when seeking advice, particularly relationship advice, and understanding that oftentimes your circle of friends aren't the best people to seek advice from if they are in similar types of toxic relationships. And further on towards the end of the episode, I talk about you seeking advice from someone who actually has been through a similar circumstance and made it out and are living a more fully and successful life. And be sure to like, comment, and share this video with any woman that you think might benefit from the advice given. And if you haven't already done so, be sure to grab a signed copy of my revised edition of He Almost Stole My Life, the Take Back Your Life version. You can purchase this from my website at shaylainspires.com or at the link below. For this series, I want to discuss the topic of being mindful of who you seek advice from. Many of us seek advice from people who are, in our inner circle. I say be mindful of who you seek advice from, because if we only go to our close friends who are in similar situations as us, and we're seeking advice to, get out of a situation, or if we're seeking what to do and they've never made it out of that, if your friendship or relationship with this person that you're seeking advice from, if the dynamics are based upon you both being in similar toxic relationships, the one side of that is the negative side, that people don't want to see you do better than what they are doing. So they won't give you sound advice for you to make it out of that, because if you happen to make it out of that, your relational dynamics will be off with the two. You won't have that in common anymore. And most of our friendships are based upon something that we have in common with the other person. So if we have that negative, that toxic, that chaotic environment or relationships or whatnot, if we have that in common with our close friend and we seek advice from that person, they don't want that to change because they don't see their way out of it. So they don't want you to be out of it because that's how you relate. Now that's the negative side of it. For the most part, I would hope that our friends do not want to see us fail. If they want to see us fail, then they probably are not true friends. But the thing is, if we seek advice from someone that's in a similar situation as you and has never made it out of that situation, or are not looking to get out of that situation, or if they're still in it and they like festering in it and they like the drama in it, and they don't have, they don't see a future without that, they cannot see far enough ahead to give you good advice to get out of it. Do you understand that? So it's not that they want you to be miserable and they want you to fail. Is that they just don't know what type of advice to give you because they are in the same situation. So the advice they give you is not going to be, for the most part, it's not going to be sound advice. And that helps the cycle the reoccurring cycle, the cycle that you're in, the toxic environment, the chaotic, the emotional, the physical, and mental abuse, the manipulation, all that stuff that's tied to being in a toxic relationship, they're not going to be able to help you get out of it, because it's a subject, something you guys share, and you can talk about this together. Girl, you know what he did to me? Tell me about it. Let's fester in this. So instead of us trying to figure out together, like, how do we get out, it's more of let's drown in our sorrows together, however we may do that. Let's talk about this together, because this is what our relationship is based upon. This is what our friendship is based upon. We have this in common, and we don't feel as alone when we're friends with, and as long as we're in relationship with each other. So we're going through this together, and we're going to continue to go through this together, because neither of us can see a way out of it. And for the most part, even if one of us wants to get out of it, the other one may not want to get out of it, and it's just a reoccurring cycle. So I'm saying be careful of whom you seek advice from, because you probably won't get sound advice from someone who's in a similar situation, who has not made the choice to get out of it. If you have a cold, you can go to your friend. What type of cold remedies do you have? I take Tylenol, cold and flu, and the next 3 days, bang, the cold's over. The cold's out of my system, and you should try it because it might work. And you take that advice, and your cold that you have progresses into the flu. Well, they don't know how to get rid of the flu. You go to a doctor for that. You go to a specific doctor for whatever your needs are, because they know how to rid you of whatever you're dealing with. You don't keep going to your same friends and then keep, having the same symptoms that keep flaring back up again. If you're sick, you go to a doctor, because they know more than you. In most cases, we know the same amount of information as our friends know. That's our comfort zone. So if you're sick, really, really ill, you don't go to your friends for a remedy. You go to a doctor, because they can give you a remedy that will make you feel better. Prime example, I'll use myself. And this is just an analogy. I was sick when I was 19. I was, deathly ill. Bedridden, I was extremely anemic. I couldn't keep food down. This went on and on, like, for the entire summer. Throughout that summer, I would go to the hospital. I would go to the ER because I couldn't get better. I wasn't getting any better. And I would go to a specific hospital that's known locally in this area. And, sometimes they would keep me over for night for observation, or they would pump me with fluids because I was dehydrated, because I couldn't keep anything down. And they would send me home, and they would tell me something that I already knew, which was that eventually I would need surgery on something, because I was born with an illness. But they never put the steps forward or put plans in front of us of how we are going to get this surgery done. It was never a step-by-step. Okay, so we're going to do this, we're going to do that, you're going to get surgery, and you're going to feel better afterwards. Never that. And this was all summer. This was, from like June to August, basically. And in September, I was really, really ill, like really sick. Like, if anyone's ever been anemic, like extremely anemic, the feeling of not being able to do anything because it's difficult for you to catch your breath. So I was 19. I turned 19 in August, and I went to a different hospital because I wasn't getting better. The remedies that this hospital where my doctor was not making me feel better. And I eventually was my mom took me to CHOP, Children's Hospital, Philadelphia. And when I got there, these weren't my doctors. I did not know these people. But they saw that I was extremely ill, deathly ill. And they set plans to rid me of this illness, to get me better or back on the right track, which meant, I was in the hospital for 2 months, and I had to eventually get surgery. But they knew what to do to get me better. The place I was going the entire summer wasn't helping me. I went somewhere else where they had, more expertise in what I was dealing with, and I'm here today. And that's because I did something different. I sought advice from someone that knew more, apparently, than the place I was going. But it's similar to you seeking advice from people that are in your surrounding. They can only give you advice for as far as they can see. If they're not able to see themselves out of a toxic or chaotic or dysfunctional relationship, they could have, good intentions. They could want to see you do better in their head, but they're not going to be able to help you do better. They're not going to give you step-by-step guide of how to go from A to B or A to Z and get yourself together to get out of this relationship or whatever the toxic environment that you're in. It's difficult, I would say, and this is why we remain in certain situations, because we don't seek advice from the correct people. And I'm saying we because, I'm human and I've done it myself. We have to be careful and we have to be selective of who we seek advice from. It's hard to get advice from, let's just think of some scenarios. If you are in a dead-end job and you want another job and your friend or someone close to you or associate or whomever you're seeking advice from is fine with being in that cycle of that dead-end job and they don't want to look for another job and they're good with, whatever comes along with that. What type of advice are they going to get you or give you to get out of that dead-end job? Because to them, there's nothing wrong with it. It's not a dead-end job to them. That's their life. It's similar to our relationship goals and dynamics. If you have a goal for your life that does not involve being in a dysfunctional or toxic relationship, but the people in your circle are all in that type of relationship, obviously the advice didn't work for them. So most likely it won't work for you if they want to get out of it. But, there are some, there's exception to every rule. I don't want you to think that, everyone that's in a bad relationship is going to give you poor advice. But I do think it's very important for you to know and be conscious of who you're talking to, because some people do not want to see you out of that. And then it's just this reoccurring cycle. And you may get out of a relationship, you may come out of, a toxic environment or toxic relationship, and then you may feel the urge to go back in it because you lack support or you just don't know what the next step will be. And it's just easier to slide back into that when people around you are in the same thing or, not encouraging you to move forward and to replace that relationship, that negativity or whatever, with something good. So that's my plea to you, is to really be careful, be mindful of who you seek advice. I always say look for mentors, people that have done it or doing it and they have results, because I don't know it all. I always look to talk to someone that knows more than what I know. When I was in that relationship that I wrote an entire book about, and I'm writing a workbook to go along with it, which should be out late summer, early fall. Shameless plug. But I know that, my girlfriends were in similar relationships, in similar circumstances. So it became a never-ending cycle. We didn't have sound advice for each other. And it wasn't just, me receiving advice from someone else. I couldn't give sound advice beyond the, girl, you need to leave that boy alone. Okay, how? And, when I don't leave him alone, or when they don't leave him alone, what's the next thing I say? Or what's the next thing we do to, move them along? So that's going to wrap it up for this series today. Just be mindful of who you seek advice from. If you don't feel like you have anyone that you can reach out to for any sound advice in dealing with leaving, toxic relationships or learning your true identity and learning who you are, feel free to send me a message, put a comment down below. I will be happy to walk through this with you, because it all boils down to me of you knowing who you are. And I want to help you find who you are, because I know that many of us we don't know. And whatever, we're in, whatever job we have that may be consuming us, or whatever relationship we may be that may be all encompassing or whatever role we're playing becomes who we are, and that's not who we are. So I want to help you figure this out. Who are you? And we can walk through this together. I'm Shayla Renee, and let's talk about it. And that'll wrap it up for this episode of Take Back Your Life, Conversations with Shay, where I aim to help women overcome toxic thoughts, feelings, people, and environments in order for them to understand their true identity in Christ and thrive. Make sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel so you could be alerted when I post a new video. Until next time, you have a great day.